Welcome today to Geoff Hill and Val Hill from Lamerton Handbell Ringers, and thank you very much for joining me for this interview for HRGB.
It's a pleasure, Amanda. You're more than welcome.
Pleasure.
And we've just been looking through some of your fantastic photos, which we'll see on the slideshow. So, how did you start handbell ringing?
Well, I started in 1963, which seems like light years ago now. Well, it was light years ago, wasn't it? But I had a ringing friend called George Mudge from Whitchurch, and George was short of a couple of one handbell ringer one night during the Christmas period. And I said I'd like to start, and I joined his team at Whitchurch.
Okay, and whereabouts is Whitchurch?
Whitchurch is on the Plymouth Road out of Tavistock, just about a mile and a half.
So not far away.
Not far away.
Okay, and then you bought your own bells.
Yes, I was hooked on handbell ringing, and I put an advertisement in the local paper, the Western Morning News, and someone from Torquay answered the advertisement, and they had a two diatonic octave sale for a 2 diatonic octave set of Mears handbells for sale.
Yes.
And they were in need of restoration, but I bought them for £1 a bell. Can't believe it, can you?
No, I know, it's incredible, isn't it? And then you rang with Whitchurch still.
I rang with Whitchurch, and I was also keeping abreast of ringing because there was a chap at Tavistock called George Grills, who was a well-known hymn tune composer as well. He wrote the Ringers Hymn, which a lot of people might have heard of. And we used to pop up there as a team on Tuesday nights, as well as going to Whitchurch on Friday nights.
Awesome.
So we were getting 2 practices a week, basically, with the little team that we formed here, and of course with the team at Whitchurch.
And you learnt a lot from George?
We learned a tremendous amount from George Grills, yes. Wonderful ambassador for handbell ringing. In fact, if George was about now, I mean, we're talking 50 years ago, but if he was around now, he would be really enthusiastic about HRGB and everything that it stands for, really.
Okay. So what did he teach you? Did he teach you your particular techniques, or off shoulder, in hand, off table?
At that time we were ringing in hand. I mean, off table ringing, I won't say was unheard of, but it's much of a north of England style of ringing, really. And a lot of teams down here at that time particularly were ringing in hand, and that was the style that George Grills taught us, and which Whitchurch had adopted as well.
Okay, and how about the 4 in hand technique? 4
in hand came a little bit later. There was a team called the Hamlet Ringers from Morton, Hampstead, and a woman called Dorothy Smith and her adopted sister Barbara Bucknell used to ring on a 2 chromatic set of bells with a bass bell of 18G off table, and they adopted the system of 4 in hand ringing, and I'd never seen that before, and it never ceased to amaze me what they were capable of being able to ring. Ringing 2 bells in each hand, and of course putting 2 down and picking 2 up and all this sort of game. It was amazing, really. So that were my first introduction to 4 in hand ringing, and we adopted that with our own team then at Lamerton.
So you were involved with the youth club too back in the early days, and in talent competitions. How was that? How did you find that?
Well, talent competitions were very much the thing when I was a younger person. Most towns and some of the villages held their carnivals, and part of the carnival week celebrations was a talent contest during the week. And we were keen to sort of get on that bandwagon somehow or another, and the first one we entered, we went to Liskeard and rang in the town hall down there. That must have been about 1970, I suppose, something like that. And we came home with a little shield, so I was some buck with that. And then the following year we took part in 2 or 3 other talent contests, which at that time were all part of the carnival celebrations.
Okay.
But mostly in West Devon.
Okay.
We never went any further than there.
Okay, so thinking about today, we'll go back to before in a minute. But do you think that sort of has encouraged the Lamerton Festival with the experience you had back then in the competition that you have now today in Lamerton?
I think possibly the talent contests were something to do with it.
Okay.
But certainly from the festival point of view, that was the brainchild of George Grills.
Okay.
I've got to go back to George here because he said even when we were learning to ring, or when I learned to ring, he said, wouldn't it be nice if a number of teams could get together and you could have a rally or a festival?
Okay.
And I mean, I'm talking late 60s now.
Yeah.
And sadly, George Grills died in 1970.
So you didn't get to
So
see.
George never got to sort of see that.
Yeah.
But it was on his inspiration, if you like, that we had our first festival.
Okay.
And I like to think that every year we hold it, and that's dedicated to the memory of George Grills, really.
Okay.
The competitive side of the festival came along a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
In 1976.
Okay.
In 1976. And the mother of one of our handbell ringers presented a cup for the best tune ringing performance.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, we can give this a try, and people haven't got a ring in the competitive side of the festival at all. But there was a lot of interest in that, and I think the team from Bratton Fleming were the first winners of that. Okay. Sadly, a team now no longer with us, and it sort of snowballed from there, really.
Okay.
But our festival is very much a laid-back affair. The competitive side of it exists, but everybody's got to come and enjoy themselves and enjoy each other's company and enjoy listening and ringing handbells together. That's what it's all about, really.
It is looking at that all-inclusive thing, isn't it? It's encouraging all teams to come, and they can either join in, listen, or not, and then they can also join in competitively if they want to.
And we have various sections with it. Which is, there's a trophy for the best junior performance.
Yes.
That's why we split it down. The best peel ringing performance. The best four-in-hand performance as well. So there's different sections within it as well. Because, you get some teams that actually are quite small and would only ring four-in-hand anyway. So over the years it has evolved with more sections.
You became involved with the Torbay and South West Music Festival for many years.
Yes, we did.
Okay, and how did you go with that? What was your experience there?
I can remember reading again in the Western Morning News. That's our biggest paper, I always call it. There's a lot of West Country information in that one. And I can remember reading the results in that one in 1971, 72 or something like that. In fact, we've still got a copy of that in the front of one of the books here. We'll dig it out a minute. And I thought it'd be rather nice to take part in that.
Okay.
So I contacted the judge at the time, which was a chap called Bill Simmons, who was active Torbell ringer and a handbell ringer in Torquay. And Bill Simmons very kindly furnished me with the information of the person they had to contact. And we went to our our first Torbay and Southwest of England festival in the early 70s. And we supported that for many, many years. The handbell section was part of the instrumental section.
I see.
To 1992, actually.
Was that the first one?
No. The last one.
The last one.
The last one was 1992.
So when you say it was part of the instrumental section, were you with other instruments? So you had other instruments from orchestra who were also taking part independently, as well as the handbells independently, that sort of thing, or
they had their own independent classes. There was a handbell class within the instrumental section.
Whole,
if you know what I mean.
And there was a senior and a junior section. There were two sections. Two sections.
But it was always very well supported. I think that most teams, there were about a dozen teams there one year when we went. I've got to mention this, one of the best teams that I can remember hearing at the Torbay Music Festival, a team sadly no longer with us now, were the King's Kerswell Handbell Ringing Society. Yeah, and they were very, very good indeed. We learned a tremendous amount from them. We did really.
We've just been looking at some of your lovely handbells that you've got set out for the Lamerton team, and I understand that you have some of the Crossland Moor set. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. It's a set with a lot of history, really.
Yeah.
I purchased my first set of bells that were a 2 diatonic octave set, as I've already mentioned, and we gradually built on that set.
Yeah.
But there were 1 or 2 of them that were suspect, shall we say.
Okay.
So I'm convinced that they weren't all beers, put it that way. When Ernie Oliver, who was the handbell technician and tuner at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, retired, he had a 2 chromatic octave set of handbells that he wanted to dispose of. And he'd restored them himself. They were in very good condition, and I purchased them from Ernie. So that was a replacement virtually of what I already had, and we sold our other set. They moved on to some other team. At that time, I also had some bigger bells that took me down to 3 bells below, which took us down from 19F to 22C. On the other end of the scale of that set, I was also offered some smaller bells, which had originally come from the north of England. So research proved that they were part of a large set that the Crossland Moor Society were using back at Bellevue Music Contest all those years ago. So they were in an old concert pitch. So I sent them up to Whitechapel. They retuned them and added the sharps and flats amongst them, and we put on another octave on the top of that set.
It's incredible that they're still in use, isn't it?
We still use them. On the other end, we to mark our 25th anniversary of the formation of the team, I went down to 25G, and they were all Whitechapel, and they cast another 7 bells down the bottom end of that set. So that filled in a 4 chromatic octave set. And I'm pleased to say that they are now all meres.
Good. So you spoke a little bit about Mrs. Dorothy Smith from Morton, Hampstead.
That's right.
And you say that you've got some bells of hers that you loaned to teams. Is that correct?
Yes, you comment on that, Val, please.
Yes, we've got a set of 25.
That's right.
Which is a fully bass bell 18G, a chromatic set from 18G up, and they were left to us by Dorothy Smith. And what we do is when Geoff is restoring handbells, and if it's a team that's already operating, then those bells get lent out. And occasionally, when there's been big HRGB events, the bells go up to help out, with mass ringing and that sort of thing as well. They are they're not totally standard pitch. They're virtually standard pitch, aren't they? Just slightly.
Yeah, they could ring in a mass ringing set. There's 1 or 2 that possibly one would question, but it's a smashing set. And Dorothy and Barbara used to ring them very well. But Valerie said they were left to me. Well, they weren't left to me at all. They were basically put in our trust, so that the set was available to any team whose bells were out of action at any time, that were available to be borrowed and used by them, and that needs to be remembered any time. Really,
that's nice.
But we also had Dorothy's music, and we try to maintain their style of ringing as well. They were known as the Hamlet team.
Yes, What sort of style did she ring?
Well, as I said, it was 4 in hand, off table, and 1 or 2 other things they used to do, which totally beyond me, but the ability that they had in being able to ring the music that they did was fantastic.
Brilliant.
She had like a rack, and she used to have them hanging down, and she had a little nogger because she had a stroke, and she couldn't, you know.
Well, afterwards she did, didn't she? But she carried on with that style. Amazing. The things that they used to ring was tremendous.
Okay. So with Lamerton, do you have 3 teams? You've got a team.
We did in the mid-80s, when Shirley, our daughter, was young. We did have the senior team, and then we had a junior team, and we had an infant team as well.
I see.
Over the years, we've always had a junior team as well as a senior team. Okay. But now, just at the moment, we don't have quite so many juniors, but so we are a one-team basis.
One big team at the moment. Okay. And have you found that people have moved from one team to another, or has it always been, you know, the same?
Well, back some years ago, we were quite rigid with the teams as they were. But now it tends to be that all ring with what we're doing.
Okay.
I have to say, if I rattled the bucket, I would get more.
Yes.
But just at the moment with things, I can only really cope with
the one
team really of 12 ringers really.
And are you teaching at the moment, or is that something?
Yes, there's a youngster now that's just going to join us now.
Okay.
And he's going to come into us now next week.
Awesome.
He's only 8.
Oh.
But he's starting to come in. But whereas some years ago I would take in 5 or 6 at once. Just at the moment I can't cope with quite so many.
That's understandable.
But they are there. I would stress they
there
definitely are there.
You'd think you'd
and
be
I've
able
got
to
2 other ladies who want to join as well. Older age bracket as well, who want to join. But
local.
From the village.
Yeah.
So there is actually Lamerton has no shortage of ringers at all.
There's a strong tradition of bell ringing in the village anyway.
Yes.
The church has always had a strong church bell ringing team. Yeah. And before we became involved in handbell ringing, there was a set of handbells in the village which sadly have disappeared. We don't know where they went.
Where have they gone?
So I have no idea. I'd like to find out where they are. But they're no longer here. But there was obviously an interest in handbell ringing way back before the Second World War. Yeah. But I'd just like to think we've revived and carried on that tradition, which is so desperately important, really.
So thinking of tower bell ringing, how are you involved with that at the moment?
Well, I started tower bell ringing before handbell ringing, really.
How are you involved now?
We've got a church bell ringing team at Lamerton, and I'm vice captain of Lamerton Church Bell Ringers. Lamerton village is part of a benefice of 7 different villages, so we would only get 1 service a week here at Lamerton, and clearly during the summer months we mightn't get that. So to be able to carry on with my bell ring, and I also ring at St Eustatius in Tavistock, which has got a strong team. They ring twice on Sundays and every Tuesday night. So I'm able, if I don't ring at Lamerton, I'm able to ring at Tavistock as well.
I see.
But it's part of my life, really.
Yeah. Okay. And you started before handbell ringing?
Yes, my parents bought Courtbarton Farm next to Lamerton Parish Church in 1963.
Okay.
And our herdswoman was a bell ringer near Newton Abbot. Right. And she came out with my parents and immediately wanted to pop into Lamerton Church to see what was going on in their church bell ringing bars. And I went in with her just to see what was happening, and a bit like handbells, as soon as I saw that there was a strong team of church bell ringers, I thought, well, I'd like a bit of that, and I learnt to ring at Lamerton.
Okay, so it's amazing how it's all grown in the locality, and it's stayed in the locality. That's quite.
Yeah, we're
nice,
fortunate here.
Yeah.
And Tavistock is fortunate. They've got strong teams. Whitchurch has got a strong team, but there are a number of churches in West Devon that have got rings of church bells that sadly haven't got enough people to ring them.
Okay.
So a bit like handbell ringing, you need to broadcast the art and try and encourage it.
Okay. And you made a CD in 2003.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Yeah. And actually you need a photograph of that too.
Okay.
Well, to celebrate our 40th anniversary, we thought it'd be a good idea to do something.
Yes.
And one of our ringers suggested that we make a CD. So we thought, well, we got nothing to lose really. We thought we were ringing pretty well at the time.
Good, yeah.
And we got together in our local village hall, which was better than we thought actually. When it was near the sort of the main road or whatnot, and we were worried about the traffic. Yeah. But luckily, we made a CD. Yeah. And clearly that was very successful. We sold out of that in no time at all.
Yeah. Also, the real reason for it was because the old parish hall was in a bad state. Yeah. And the village was trying to build a new one. Okay. I was chairman of the parish hall committee at that time. Yeah. And we needed really $500,000 to be able to build the new hall. So the CD was actually done as a fundraiser for that as well. Yeah. And it actually took off to quite a stage. Okay. In actual fact, at the end of the day, it made over £1,000 for the new village hall, which we did eventually get in 2007. Oh, I see. The new hall was built in 2007. So from the festival's point of view, the old hall was because the actual festivals were in the parish church from 1973 right up to 1995. Yes. And then they moved to the old village hall. Okay. It was not an easy venue at all. But of course, once we moved to the new one, I mean, it's made a huge amount of difference to our festivals and to a lot of people, really.
I've got to mention why we moved from Lamerton Church. The first festival we had, I always remember, we had about 5 or 6 different teams. The following year we had 10 teams, didn't we, in Lamerton Church? Yeah. And 6 of them were all ringing Don Bedford's arrangement of my grandfather's club. Oh. They were totally unaware of that, but that's what happened. But of course, back in those days, there were hardly any off-table teams. Yeah. One, I think, that's all. But of course, the pews are still in there. Yeah. So being able to set up for off-table ringing would have been impossible, certainly today. So that prompted us to go to the parish hall, Val, didn't it?
It did. It did. Yeah.
Do you still have the CDs for sale today?
We never printed any more. I think we've just got one in our possession.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a shame, really.
Yes. It was really a shame that was. We didn't have any more.
So then, moving up to your 50th anniversary, you were presented with a certificate by Robert Winnis.
Yes, we were quite overwhelmed. Yes, we were totally unaware of what was going to happen, which makes it even which makes it even more of a surprise, doesn't it? But I was very grateful to Robert and John and Jane and Ian Hayes and a few others, I guess, getting together and saying this needed to be recognised. And
that was what that one was.
Oh, we'll have to take a picture of that.
We were presented with this certificate, which was quite something. We were over the moon about that. But a real surprise, Phil, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a surprise.
Where was that?
That was done at the Handbell Festival.
The Handbell Festival. Yeah. That makes it even better, doesn't it? Yeah. Wow.
That was on the 50th anniversary. So that was in the October of 2013.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the 50th anniversary.
No, it wasn't done then.
Ooh.
It was done we had a ringing around the region.
Oh yes,
We had a ringing around the region in the February of 2013.
I see.
So that's when it was done, was the ringing around the region. No, we got to do something about that. That's a bit of a thing. So yes, February of 2013 it was done.
Okay, and ringing around the region is a southwest sort of initiative where people get together and ring.
Yes.
You know,
music.
Yeah.
We've had a ringing around the region here in Lamerton Hall.
Yes.
In the hall in Lamerton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thinking about your overall sort of experience, do you play any other musical instruments or sing or things like that?
I play church organ.
Okay.
I play the church organ, so so very musically orientated.
Yeah.
We actually still ring from numbers.
Yes.
We've never actually gone on to staff notation.
Okay.
Because of we do have, you know, over the years we do tend to get particularly youngsters sometimes who have got a little bit of learning difficulty. And because of that, staff notation would be way off beat. So I actually transpose music back into number form and into a one score. You know, and I actually do point to the music. So that I make sure that, you know, I keep everybody together.
Well, that sort of makes it all inclusive, doesn't it? Because it is surprising how quickly you can ring a tune with a handbell when you can do it that way. And that's what, you know, handbell ringing is all about.
Well, that, you know, I've not been able to progress on. Well, whether that is progress, I don't know. But I think it's, you know, a lot of it is geared really to, you know, some people I would fall by the wayside, whereas now they don't. You know, because we still keep them ringing.
When you look back over the years, what's been your most memorable moments in your handbell ringing?
Most memorable moment in our handbell ringing?
Apart from your honorary certificate.
Well, from a handbell ringing point of view, I guess the presentation of that certificate from HRGB to Val and I was quite a milestone. We were pleased with that.
And of course, Geoff's honoured member. Which
this was a highlight for me. I mean, I'm never usually short of anything to say, but I was completely speechless when this came up. To be elected an honoured member of the Southwest region was quite something. I consider that a tremendous honour. I do really. From a national point of view, it's been difficult, now impossible for us to take our team all over the country and show what we're able to do or what we aren't able to do in cases. But we've always tried to maintain an interest in handbell ringing in this part of the country, and I guess this is recognising our ability, possibly being able to do that. This was a tremendous honour. I was really pleased with that.
To have achieved 50 years and to have had the big celebration that we had with, you know, seeing, because really there were 3 generations of ringers there at the celebrations there as well. And to think now we are 56 years on.
It's incredible, isn't it?
In it, and 46 years of the festival.
We've been at, what I'm pleased about is the team is as keen now as it was when it started. I'm quite overwhelmed by that. Teams join and get going, and there's nothing better than a new team, but to be able to maintain a team is more difficult than anything. It is really, and we're fortunate enough and Val's responsible for a lot of this in being able to teach people to ring and encourage ringing, and to be able to still get a team together when we want to is quite something. It is really very pleased.
We do a lot of charity work as well, and that is the other thing. I mean, that might be helpful to you, because that gives you all the list of the charities and that we have supported over the years, and we continue to support every year.
Okay.
In the early years, it was the church that we used to help, and largely the early festivals, really, that was to help with the raising of money. In the beginning, a screen to screen off the existing tower to make it a little bit warmer. So there's a lot of money. So in the early years, the money all went to the church. But then when we moved to the hall, then we were, we started to look sideways, and we would look at Devon Air Ambulance, for instance, the hospices, all sorts, really. But we tend to do the local ones. Macmillan Nurses, Triangle Centre, which and it's trying to make a difference to within the community that we live in, really.
All the money that we make during the year goes to that to any, as Val said, any charitable organisation. We own the bells, and we've increased the set over the years through the little bit of bell restoration that I've done. So if there's a little bit made on that, well, then we've purchased an extra bell or two, and we've spent none of our money that we've collected on handbells.
Everything goes to charity.
Everything goes to charity.
Okay. So thinking about that, do you actually go out to care homes and ring things like that, WIs, other sort of venues? Okay.
That's at Christmas.
At Christmas,
we have two old people's homes in the village. So we do them. That's on a regular on a regular basis. And sometimes there are functions that are coming up where specifically raising money for other things. Well, we go and help. And the classic one now is the restoration of Milton Abbot Church bells.
So
which is the next parish to us. And we're giving a concert there. And that will be whatever is raised that night goes to that. So we're very happy to help others. With them things.
And do you sing, Geoff?
I sing, yes. Not very much. But,
don't think you want me to ask him that.
I'm keen on traditional folk songs.
Oh, okay.
And if there's something particularly that's related to bell ringing in any way, then I embrace that. And occasionally, if I'm asked, I might. But it's not very often at all. I have to hasten to add that my wife doesn't like it at all. She doesn't really.
Does it happen in the shower or does it not?
Probably.
No,
Happen in the shower?
Singing.
I don't think I sing in the shower. I don't think I do. No. I think you got to remember, sometimes, I mean, we've given a concert or two in the past that perhaps needed something else in it.
Okay.
And there have been the odd occasion, much to Val's disgust, that I thought, well, I'd like to sing a so-and-so. But it's just a slant on things. But I think it's nice if it's to do with bell ringing or something like that. And there are a few bell ringing songs about, so, why not?
I should have to have a look into them. Okay. Did you learn to read music, or have you...
No.
You just sort of ring by numbers and...
I ring by numbers.
Yes.
I play the organ as well.
Okay.
But purely by ear. I mean, Val and I are poles apart. She's a much better organist than I am.
So I couldn't do it by ear.
But if I hear a tune, I recognise that. And I can sit and play it.
Wow.
And whereas Val's a brilliant organist, marvellous organist.
Just have a piece of music in front of you.
She cannot play.
No, not by ear.
No. So we've argued over this occasionally on times, Amanda. But
oh dear, I've touched on a sensitive subject. I think we shall move on. So, in your team, do you have too many ringers at times? Or do you have to cover the bells? How does that work?
We're very well flushed with bell ringers. Well flushed with members of the team. There are occasions when possibly we might have too many members in a team.
Yeah.
And clearly we don't like to leave anybody out, so rather than one person maybe ringing 5 bells off table, we'll involve that with 3 people, if you know what I mean. Which is fine, but the trouble is, and you've seen our belfry out there, if you've got too many people, that's a bit of a squeeze.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, to ring 4 chromatic octaves like we do, you want a condensed team of about 10.
Okay.
And that's brilliant. It gives everybody plenty of room.
Yeah.
And if they're all musical and they're responsible for maybe just 2 bells each, or another person needs to ring 4 or 5 bells each, then that's okay. That's not a problem.
Okay. And what's your experience of national rallies? Have you ever been to a national rally with teams?
We've never been to a national.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
Well, not running.
To Exeter.
Oh, okay.
But we've never run in it.
No, not to ring.
Okay.
No, we've never run in it.
But actually we've attended it.
Okay.
We've attended Exeter.
So you've experienced the massed ringing.
Oh yes, because we've been to ringing around regions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, we've been.
The last one we went to was the 50th anniversary. It was out at Exeter.
Yeah.
And we went to that evening concert.
Yeah.
And we were very impressed with that. There was some marvellous ringing there. There really was. Ably hosted and emceed by Paul Scoble.
Yes.
That was really good. And some teams clearly have an impact on you more than others. I'm very much a traditionalist. The thing that got it for me was that we're Ecclesfield.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember hearing them years ago on a record.
Yes. I've seen some
on a gramophone player. And it was nice to be able to go up and say, well, yeah, I mean, they were ringing pieces that Hazel Bradley would remember ringing with that team 60 odd years ago. And that was lovely. A traditional off-table North of England style team.
Wow.
It doesn't mean to say that the others weren't good. They really were.
I think that's one of the things actually that we have missed out on over the years, is the fact that we haven't really been able to go too far afield.
Yeah.
And largely that is because of the farm.
Yes. Yeah.
Because up until 10 years ago we were milking cows.
Yeah.
So we were unable to it had wherever we went had to be within striking distance really to be able to come home. Wells Cathedral that time back in 1982. Yeah. That was major. That was to actually go up and do that and come back again.
So can you imagine?
But we do find that it's nice if things are fairly close to hand. Local, but being in the southwest, we are feral way. We're a feral journey.
That's right. So that's where ringing around the regions come in and helps.
It has, yes. We've gone to ringing around regions when we can.
Yeah.
With everything. I mean, we enjoy the mass ringing when we can go to do it, and we find that the team, it's good for the team as well to do something a bit different as well.
And how about how do you fund your own activities? Do you have like a subscription from your team, or how do you join HRGB? Do members pay individually, or how does that work?
Members pay individually for their for their membership, but that's it. That's it.
Okay.
There's nothing else taken.
And then
everybody's always happy to drive.
Yes, so it's all shared.
I think if we were to cost how much it would cost in petrol,
that's right.
We have to do something different.
Well, and I don't think actually, if we tried to be charging every week, I don't think we'd get people to do it.
No, we wouldn't. I'm sure of that.
I mean, I think over the years it has cost us a lot of money. Probably, but it's a hidden cost as far as we are concerned, and it has been our hobby as well. And we have tried to give to the community and people in our way, really.
But all members of our team are more than happy to supply transport or assist with organising things or anything else. If necessary, they're very good that way.
And I buy all the music. I finance all of that. And anything that's to do with the bells, restoration work or anything, we do it ourselves. So there's no real money involved, and the only thing that we ever have any money from is from the festival,
Right.
And the money that is over and above that festival goes to the charity.
Yeah.
Goes to the charity. Okay. And our bit of Christmas money that we would get from the odd function that we would play at, and they do a collection for our charity.
Yeah.
Goes to the charity.
Yeah.
But we don't get involved in money.
No.
You know.
That's the nice thing. It shows you how community involved handbell ringing is, doesn't it? By doing it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you think's been the biggest change from the time you started ringing to now?
I think certainly from the West Country point of view is the interest in off-table ringing.
Okay.
As I said earlier with our festivals, the first ones we held in Lamerton Church, everybody was ringing in hand. There was one off-table team, I can't think who it was now, but most teams had 12 bells.
Yes.
So the biggest impact I've seen is the spread of music from the north of England, if you like, through HRGB, spreading into the west of England, and people buying more bells, increasing their range, and ringing off table. Okay. Whether that's been a good move or not, I don't know. I might be speaking out of turn here, but I've got a lot of the Don Bedford's music in there now.
Yeah.
Simple 12-bell music.
Yeah.
And we still get as much pleasure out of ringing that on the back 12 of that set than we do ringing 4 chromatic octaves. And it's like everything. There's nothing wrong with encouraging more ringing on more bells, but we need to maintain what we'd already done in the past.
Just maintaining the different traditions throughout the country.
Tradition needs to be maintained.
And sometimes it's easier to, you know, the old people's homes that I go to.
Yeah.
Well, I only take 12, 14 bells.
Yeah.
You know, because you are limited for space as well, and it's much easier just to go out with 5 or 6 people and ring up in hand.
That's right. Okay. One of the things that we found in HRGB is there's more women than men now, compared to the competition days when it was all men. Have you got any opinions on why that could be?
Well, certainly in the older days, a lot of teams were based on the working men's clubs, weren't they?
Okay.
I mean, certainly North Yorkshire Association, which was quite strong back in the mid-1800s, wasn't it? I mean, they were all based on teams that were employed in a factory or a coal mine or something like that. I mean, Peter Fawcett has brought reference to that in his book, has he not? Yeah. But clearly the presence of that isn't as great as it was back in those days.
So I think also women are more outward going. Yeah. With things now, they're much more involved. They've got their own little groups. I mean, the number of like WIs that have got their own teams, and they're much more resourceful. Probably a lot of it because people are going out to work more, and also, especially down in the southwest, you've got a lot more people who are retired and they're looking to do other things within it. So I think,
it's interesting, isn't it, how it's changed?
There may be an exception to that. Yeah. I don't want to keep harping on about tower bell ringing, but the main influence in tower bell ringing at Calstock in Cornwall in 1850 was a chap called Colonel Trelawney. Okay. And Colonel Trelawney owned a set of 12 handbells. Him and his wife rang 4 of them, and his 4 daughters rang the other 8. Right. So there was a female incident. I mean, there was only one chap in that team, if you like. Yeah. So it was apparent in those days. Maybe only in one small way, but it wasn't women were ringing back.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Do you know of any sets of bells that aren't being used?
There are 1 or 2 sets about certainly in West Devon that aren't being used that should be. Okay, that's interesting. And I think that's a shame. Yeah. There's a set I'm just thinking of at the moment at Chillerton, only 4 miles from here. Okay. A new set. Yeah. And in very good condition. Okay. And sadly, the leader of the Tower Bell team out there died 3 years ago. Okay. And the set wasn't used at all before then. No. And I think he would have been the only one to have got things moving out there. So that's food for thought for the future.
But I
there.
think generally there are, because over the years with restoration work that Geoff has done, largely it is because there's a lot of enthusiasm at the time, and I mean, I can think of several. I mean, there's the ones up in Cayley and those sort of places that you have refurbished. Well, they are no longer in existence at the moment.
Okay.
Now, that isn't to say that they won't be.
No, that's right.
They're still there.
But they're still there. And
Cornwood is another, isn't it? Had a lovely
Cornwood were in HRGB, and they've got a large 3-octave set. Well, they aren't used anymore.
They're still in the belfry there. They're not being used.
So
but that isn't to say that it might, it could
That's
well change.
Right.
It could well change, but they are there. It is very true, they are.
So just to touch on your restoration work, how did you become involved with restoration of bells? How did you learn?
Well, as I say, the first set that I bought were playable, but in need of restoration. Okay. So I sent them up to sent 12 of them up to Whitechapel. Yeah. And when they came back, apart from the retuning, the re-leathering and everything else, I thought, well, I think I'd like to have a go at that. Yeah. And 2 years later, there was a set of handbells uncovered at Milton Abbot. Yeah. Out in the rectory attic. Yeah. And they were by an unusual firm, Jeffries and Price, as I mentioned earlier. And they were keen to play them, so I did them up, and that was the start of it all. Okay. And that would have been about 1974, something like that. Yeah. And I've been fiddling around with handbell sets ever since. But it's funny, I don't know why it should be. I mean, I'm 70 years old now. But I get as much through when somebody says, I've got a set of handbells, can I bring them out and you have a look at? Yeah. I'm keen to, I wonder who cast them, I wonder what they're like. Yeah. Even now, after all these years, it's silly really, but I'm always, the sets that come are either Mears, Taylors, Warners, John Warner and Son cast thousands of sets, or Shaws or something like that. But if there's a set comes from a foundry that, oh, I haven't seen a set like that for years. Then it sends a tingle down my back. It's uncanny. Shouldn't be really. Bad, that. Very bad.
So, just to finish off our thoughts on handbell ringing overall, where do you see handbell ringing in the future, and where would you like to see handbell ringing in the future?
What do you think, Val?
Well, I don't think that we're going far wrong with what we're doing at the moment. I think the biggest thing is that I think is making sure that we train and encourage as many youngsters as we possibly can, because that is the future. I mean, how they decide to take it on down through is how they do. All we can do is give the foundations of all of it, and for them to move on as they want to. I don't think that there's a lot wrong with what we're doing at the moment. With any of it. I know there's an awful lot of older people that are ringing, and sometimes at things you look around and we're a load of geriatrics. I agree, but I think it's just we just got to make sure that within us that we bring in the younger element, not necessarily bringing in masses of them in one go, bringing in a few to once and keeping them interested. Really.
It's almost like seeding an interest, isn't it, that they might come back to later in life.
Well, we see that. We see that.
If people have learnt to ring and they don't ring for some time afterwards, once they've always learnt, they're able to come back to it. But Val's absolutely right. We need to keep encouraging more people, the younger people, to learn to ring. And don't be afraid to ring some 12-bell music. This is my answer. There are a lot of 12-bell sets out there. And it's marvellous to ring a big set and everything else. But half a dozen youngsters on a set of 12,
yeah.
they can be ringing a tune within the same night as they learn to ring.
And that feeds them.
Yeah.
And then you can build.
And you can move on. You can build on that.
Yeah.
You can build
and you
on
can
that.
tell instantly whether one is going to make it or no.
Yeah.
Within a very, very short space of time, you can see whether but the way that they hold their bell in the first instance, you can tell whether they're going to be, that they're going to be a stayer.
Yeah.
But Amanda, atmosphere's got to be the thing. You've got to have a team that get on with each other.
Yes.
And the atmosphere they create is a catalyst to draw that team together.
They have to enjoy it.
They've got to enjoy it, and we're fortunate that way.
Do you think the team actually creates that as well? So it encourages them to listen to each other and become a team and
I'm sure
become friends.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it. Everybody got their own ideas about things. And there's occasions when there may be a few words, but it's lovely making up, you know.
Yeah. It's great to people. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you want to take
thank
some
you.
pictures?
Yeah.
Yes, because I was going to say your time's going on.
Well,
Yes.
it's all right. So thank you very much, Geoff and Val, for sharing your memories of handbell ringing today and your passion for handbell ringing overall, which comes across enormously.
Lovely. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Talk to us. Thank you very much.
Yeah.